Many years ago, in a small community in Obiakpo, there lived a girl named Monica who grew up in a small room in a narrow compound. Her father was a driver in those days, and even though he had jobs, he did not like parting with money. Monica saw this too early in life. She saw it in the way her mother would clear her throat before asking him for money. She would first praise him before mentioning what was needed, as if she were approaching a village deity that could be offended by direct language. Nna Monica, her mother would begin. There is no Gary in the house again. Her father would not answer at once. He would continue blowing air into his cup of hot tea, as if the word Gary was a rumor from another compound. Then her mother would try again. School has resumed too. The children need books. That was when he would look up slowly like a chief who had been interrupted during an important meeting in his head. Do I pluck money from the mango tree outside? Well, there was no mango tree outside. Sometimes Monica wanted to say so, but even as a child, she had enough sense not to correct a man who was holding the atmosphere hostage. Her mother would press her lips together, adjust her wrapper, and then try a different route. I am not saying you should pluck it. I am only saying the children will eat with words. Her father would hiss, a hiss that carried insults, poverty, tiredness, and wickedness in one breath. Money no dey grow for tree. That sentence became one of the pillars of Monica's childhood. It came out when kerosene finished. It came out when the landlord knocked for his rent. It came out when the school sent them home for unpaid fees. It came out when her mother's sander tore. It came out when fever entered the house. If her mother asked for 10 naira, her father would answer as if she had requested for one plot of land at GRA. One Saturday afternoon, during the raining season, the matter entered Monica's heart and balanced properly. Rain had fallen since morning and their room smelled of damp clothes. Her mother had placed buckets under 3 different leaking spots. Gary had finished and there was only half onion, 2 spoons of grounded crayfish and 1 sachet of tomato paste folded like a sacred document. Monica was hungry enough to begin respecting beans. Her mother stood before her father and said, "Please, Nna Monica, just give me small money for food. Even if it is not much, let me cook something for the children." Her father was lying on the bed with one hand behind his head, seriously listening to radio football analysis as if he were the Minister of Sports. He removed the radio from one ear and looked at her as if she had asked him to fund a bridge project. "You women," he said, shaking his head. "If money enters your hand now, piam, it has vanished. No control, no planning, no nothing." Monica's mother blinked. "The money has not even entered my hand. It has vanished already." For a second, Monica nearly laughed, but wisdom held her back. Her father sat up and shouted, "Don't start your nonsense with me this afternoon, oh." "Which nonsense?" her mother asked. "I said the children are hungry." "Am I the one that caused hunger in the world?" the man fired back. At that point, even the rain on the roof seemed to pause and ask itself whether this man was serious. Her mother looked at him ridiculously. "Nobody said you caused hunger in the world. I said your children need food." Finally, he stretched his hand under the pillow, brought out some notes, counted them slowly, then removed a part and returned the rest beneath the pillow. Then he handed her the money. She looked at it. "This cannot buy enough food." He waved his hand. "It will buy what it will buy if you know how to manage." Manage. That word also lived in their house. Manage the rice, manage the oil, manage the candle, manage the school fees, manage the cough, manage itself, everything manage. Her mother took the money without another word and stepped out into the rain with an umbrella that leaned to one side like a broken table. Monica stood at the doorway and watched her go, holding the umbrella with one hand and holding the little money that had come with insults tied around it. That was the day Monica made a decision in the chamber of her heart. She did not announce it or write it down anywhere. She only stood there angrily and promised herself that she would never stand before any man begging for survival. She would rather become the person collecting the interest. Many years later, Monica grew very sharp. She was not the prettiest girl in the neighborhood though, but what set her apart was not beauty, it was calculation. While other girls were still writing Mrs. Somebody at the back of their notebooks, Monica was busy observing patterns. She went round the market and noticed which men bought foodstuffs but spoke to their wives like prisoners. She noticed which men had no money but carried plenty of pride, the useless pride that could not even buy one tuber of yam. She noticed which women looked happy, which women looked trapped, which women wore gold but had fear in their voices. And she learned early that love stories usually looked sweeter from outside the window. In secondary school then, if a boy offered her a meat pie, she would not blush first. She would ask him where he got the money. And if he said his uncle gave him, she would nod in disappointment because that meant borrowed shine. He was not independent. Then at the university, Monica became a legend among her roommates. Not because she was wild, nah. Monica was not the type that chased every man. She was far too disciplined for that foolishness. Her own method was cleaner, colder, and somehow more frightening. While other girls were writing long emotional messages at midnight and crying when one boy ignored them, Monica sat on her bed like a small board chairman and analyzed men the way business people analyzed failing companies. This one has potential but no capital, she would say about a particular boy. Her roommate would laugh. Monica, he is in 300 level engineering. So, Monica would ask, potential is not breakfast. Another time, one fine boy with broad shoulders, white sneakers, and a deep voice began to follow her around campus. He was from a good home. His father had houses and his mother owned a school. The boy spoke English through his nose as if vowels were imported. Monica listened to him for 1 week, watched how he spent money carelessly, how he borrowed notes without returning them, how he treated waiters, and then she announced to Lillian, who had by then been her closest friend, this one has money but no vision. Money will run away from him. Lillian nearly fell from laughter. You have killed him before the relationship even started. He killed himself, Monica replied. A man who has access to wealth and still behaves like a decorative flower pot is a public risk. There was another one named Ebube who wrote poems, quoted the Bible incorrectly, borrowed airtime from women, and called himself a deep thinker. Monica rejected him with such speed that he nearly developed whiplash. What about that one? Lillian asked. Monica snorted. Waste of time. High talk, low impute. Lillian stared at her unbelievably. Monica, do you ever like somebody for ordinary reasons, like kindness, like chemistry, like love? Monica looked at her as if she had asked whether soap could fry akara. Feelings do not pay rent, she replied simply. That became one of her famous lines. People laughed each time she said it, but Monica was not joking. She meant it like a tax officer. After school, life in Port Harcourt shaped her further because the city was generous to those who knew how to package themselves. Monica learned quickly. She got a decent job in a logistic company, upgraded her dressing, polished her speech, learned the art of the late smiling, and perfected that look women use when they want a man to know that he was not yet qualified to waste their time. She moved from the leaking compound of her childhood to a flat with tiles, and she began to use perfumes with French names that sounded like somebody sneezed halfway through the pronunciation. She wore wigs that looked expensive even when they were not. She was confident that she would never be caught in the wrong economic brackets. By 30, Monica had become very good at her system. She dated only men who could upgrade her life, not men who wanted to build together with empty pockets and motivational speeches. She had no interest in joining any man to suffer in installments. If a relationship stopped adding value, she ended it the way a bank rejects some loan requests. She attended birthdays, weddings, housewarmings, church events, and professional events, not because she enjoyed crowds, but because she believed people were opportunities wearing clothes. Monica was all out for networking, and nobody knew the full extent of it except her phone. Inside that phone, she had a private note titled "My Life Portfolio," and she protected it with a password so strong that even a witch would need 2 attempts to penetrate. In that note, she listed people like investments. She would write Chinedu, high income, low loyalty risk, but a bit too proud for now, monitor him. Auntie Bosse, government connection, keep her close, tolerate her long voice notes. Tari, emotional liability, limits interaction with him, he drains energy. Uncle Ben, useful during contract season, call him during festive periods. Cousin Ify, always requesting money, avoid her after salary week. Yes, even her family members were not spared. Monica did not hate them all. She simply arranged them mentally into categories, the way people arrange clothes in a wardrobe: useful, neutral, dangerous, or draining. One day, Lillian borrowed Monica's phone to make a call because her own battery had died, and Monica almost developed a fever before she collected the phone back. Lillian laughed. "Why are you behaving like a spy? It's just a call." Monica smiled awkwardly. "Privacy is important." Lillian squinted at her. "It is either you are hiding a husband or you are hiding madness." Monica grinned. "Maybe both of them." Fortunately, her system appeared to work so well. It was producing results. She was rising. Her salary improved and her circle improved. She was no longer the little girl watching her mother beg for soup money. She now sat in places with chilled air, crossing one leg over the other and discussing investments with men whose watches could pay school fees for a full village. Even success was proud of her at this point. However, Lillian, who had known Monica for years, kept trying to touch the human side that Monica had locked somewhere inside herself. One evening, as they sat at one high-end restaurant having dinner, Lillian leaned closer and said, "My friend, I have been watching you for years. You treat people like stepping stones." Monica chewed elegantly, swallowed, then drank water before answering. "It is better than being stepped on." Lillian stared at her. "Must everything be transaction for you?" Monica smiled. "Well, not everything." "Oh, really? Name one thing." Monica thought for a second and then said, "Perfume." "Perfume is out of the option." Lillian burst out laughing. "This girl is a devil, small devil in wig." Monica smiled. "Call it what you like. I just don't have energy for nonsense." Lillian shook her head. "One day, this your mathematics will fail." Monica winked. "Then I will solve it again." That was Monica. She was so sure of herself. She had convinced herself that it was better this way. It was better to use your head than your heart. Better to classify people before they classified you. Better to invest than to love foolishly. Better to stand on high ground than to kneel in need like her mother once did. Her deepest pet peeves were humiliation and embarrassment. So, the day her car broke down unexpectedly was one of her worst days. Monica had just left a meeting where she had spoken with confidence and elegance. As she drove down the road, her car began to cough in a loud, embarrassing and attention-seeking way. "You dare not," Monica muttered, tapping the steering wheel as if the car would respond to threats. But the engine made one last dramatic sound and died like a Nollywood actor in a village film. Monica sat there for a moment, staring ahead. "You must be joking," she muttered. To make matters worse, cars behind her began to honk. One driver leaned out and shouted, "Madam, if you want to park well now." Monica closed her eyes briefly. "Ah, God, please give me patience before I insult somebody's father." Eventually, she called a towing service, and that was how she found herself at a mechanic workshop that looked like it had been arguing with order since 1998. Everywhere was disorganized. The ground was stained with oil. Old engines lay around like retired soldiers, and a goat was passing as if it also had a car to fix. The smell threw Monica off guard. "Jesus Christ," she muttered, covering her nose. "Why is this place smelling like regrets?" One of the mechanics laughed. "Madam, na workshop be this, no be spa." Monica gave him a look that said, "If not that I need you, this conversation would not have happened." She stood carefully, avoiding puddles and looking around to see if there was anyone worth her time there. But unfortunately, there was no single person, well, maybe except for one man who was standing a little away from the noise, holding a set of tools and passing them to one of the mechanics without talking too much. His shirt was clean, yes, but it was not that impressive. His trousers were plain. His shoes had seen life, but they were not begging yet, and his posture was calm. Monica looked at him once. That was enough to conclude that he had no exposure, no class, and definitely no use. She shifted her gaze immediately, already uninterested. But then he came up to her and said, "Madam, you can sit under that shade. The sun is too harsh." His voice did not match his appearance at all. It was clear and educated. Monica turned back slightly, surprised against her will. She looked at him again, this time properly. He was just normal, so she said, "Thank you," in a polite but dry tone. She walked to the shade and sat down carefully, adjusting her dress as if the chair might misbehave. After some time, the main mechanic stepped out to attend to another customer, leaving her car half opened like a patient in surgery. Monica sighed, checked her phone, replied 2 messages, ignored 3 others, and then looked up again. The man was now near her car. "Excuse me," he said. "This is a minor issue. It just needs tightening here." Before Monica could respond, he bent down and started to tighten something. Within minutes, he stepped back and said, "You can try it now." Monica stood up slowly, entered the car and turned the ignition. The engine responded immediately. She blinked. Then she came down again and asked, "How much?" But he shook his head and said, "No need." Monica paused. "I asked how much." He smiled. "I heard you. No need." Well, that confused her because no man does anything for free, not in Port Harcourt. There was always a reason, always a hidden invoice, and always a future expectation. She studied him more carefully now. "Are you sure?" He nodded, yes. He did not stretch his hand for her number. Neither did he try to extend the conversation. He simply picked up another tool and returned to what he was doing. Monica stood there for a moment longer than necessary. Then she entered her phone and drove off. After then, Monica's life returned to its normal rhythm of meetings, calls and careful choices. She almost forgot about the mechanic workshop until one Saturday afternoon when she entered a small bookstore to buy a planner she did not need but wanted to own. The shop was the type that made you feel intelligent just by standing inside. And there he was again. The same man dressed in a simple shirt. He was standing by a shelf flipping through a book as if he had nowhere urgent to be. Monica paused, then she slowly walked past him, pretending not to notice. But he looked up briefly, recognized her and smiled. "Is your car still working?" Monica almost laughed of all the things to say. "Yes, it is working," she replied. "Good," he said, and returned to his book. That was all. He did not make any attempt to stretch the conversation. Monica frowned. This one is different. However, before he left, he walked up to her, introduced himself as Joshua, and collected her number. They spoke only a little that day, just simple conversation, nothing deep. And for the first time, Monica found herself in a conversation where she was not being evaluated, admired, chased, or positioned. She was just being spoken to, and it unsettled her. As she left the bookstore, she entered her car and sat quietly for a moment. Then, as usual, she did what she knew best. She opened a file on her phone and wrote, "Joshua, unclear value, monitor him." However, after that day, somehow, their paths kept crossing in the most ordinary ways. They once met at a cafe, at a supermarket, and at a roadside fruit stand, where Monica was trying to decide whether the recent price of pineapple was an insult or a mistake. And each time, the same pattern repeated. He greeted her normally, spoke to her normally, and left normally, which irritated Monica now because she did not know where to place him. One evening, they sat together in a restaurant. Monica had ordered something she could not pronounce properly, but she ordered it anyway because of the environment, while Joshua had ordered just juice in a place where people were taking pictures of their food. Monica watched him and said, "You always keep things simple." He shrugged. "Simple is easier to maintain." Monica smiled and fired. "That sounds like something people say when they cannot afford complex." Joshua smiled, "Or when they do not need to prove anything." Monica leaned back. You speak like someone who has seen money." Joshua sipped his juice. "Everyone has seen money." Monica rolled her eyes. "Not like that. I mean real money." Joshua looked at her and shrugged. "Maybe." Now, that answer annoyed her more than if he had bragged. She did not like uncertainty. So, she began her process of testing. First, she delayed replying to his messages. If he sent a message in the morning, she would reply at night. If he called, she would sometimes let it ring, and she started mentioning expensive things casually. One day, she said, "I just got back from a private dinner." She was watching his reaction while she spoke, but Joshua only nodded and said, "Hope the food was good." That was all. He did not try to match her energy or to impress her. She even compared him to other men. "Someone I met recently just closed a deal worth millions," she said one day, and Joshua smiled. That is good for him. He did not even feel the least pressure, and she started to get angry more because her system was failing. Most men she had met reacted in predictable ways. They either tried to impress her, felt intimidated, and became defensive. Unfortunately, Joshua did none of this. He remained himself and stable. One evening, as they walked out of a bookstore, Joshua said, "You don't trust people." Monica laughed lightly. "I trust results." Joshua nodded slowly. "That must be really exhausting." That sentence entered her chest in a strange way, but she brushed it off and said, "I am fine." Joshua did not argue. He simply said, "All right." And that was part of the problem she had with him. He never chased her. He just existed. Monica went home that night and lay on her bed staring at the ceiling. Then she reached for her phone, opened her notes, scrolled, and then wrote under Joshua: no clear income source, no visible lifestyle, low exposure, low social leverage, high risk. She stared at the screen. Then she made a decision immediately: cut off low value investments. The next day, she did not reply his message. The following day, she ignored his call, and the next time he texted her, she replied after 2 days with one line: busy. He responded, I understand. Then 1 week later, he called again. This time she picked. Hello? His voice came next. Hi, did I do something wrong? His voice did not sound accusing. He was just asking. Monica felt guilt tried to rise inside her, but she quickly pushed it down and said, no, I just think we are on different levels. There was silence for a brief moment. Then Joshua nodded, even though she could not see him. All right, that was all he said. He did not try to beg or to negotiate. Monica dropped her phone on the bed and stood up. She adjusted her hair, checked herself in the mirror, and told herself, good decision. As usual, she had done a correct calculation. After Monica cut Joseph off, if anybody asked her, she would say she simply moved on like a sensible woman who knew how to protect her standards. That was the official story she told herself. However, from time to time, Monica would remember one small thing about him and feel irritated. Not because she missed him exactly, but because she had never quite finished understanding him. He was one of the few people she had filed away without confidence. She had judged him, yes, but the judgment had not given her peace. Unfortunately, life did not wait for Monica to complete her private investigations. Her schedule remained full, work increased, events increased, and men continued to circle around her with expensive perfumes, proud promises, and polished shoes. Of course, Monica kept doing what Monica knew how to do best. She attended meetings, wore excellence like an outfit, smiled selectively, and moved through Port Harcourt confidently like a woman who believed she understood the machinery of ambition better than most people. Then, one Thursday evening, an invitation entered her phone that changed the temperature of her week. It was for a high-profile business event scheduled to take place at one of the best hotels in the city. The guest list carried weight. There would be investors, founders, consultants, senior executives, government people, and media people. Monica loved those events. This was her natural habitat, not because she enjoyed pretending. No. Monica truly understood those rooms. She knew where to stand, how long to smile, when to laugh, when to pull back, or when to drop one intelligent sentence and leave it hanging in the air like perfume. She knew how to dress in a way that screamed expensive without shouting desperate. She knew how to glide, not walk. She knew how to receive a compliment as though she had heard better ones before breakfast. That evening, she prepared like a general before battle. She selected a fitted deep wine red, and when she stood before her mirror, she gave herself one slow nod. Yes, let's go and prosper. At the venue, the hall was beautiful and polished. Monica entered confidently and greeted 2 people she already knew. Then, she collected a drink she did not really want and began scanning the room sharply. As the event started, Monica stood near the middle of the hall, only half listening, until the host tone changed. And now, it is my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, the founder of one of the fastest growing investment groups in West Africa, a man known for his strategic discretion, bold expansion, and unusual leadership style. People began clapping lightly before the name was even mentioned. Monica adjusted her posture. Then she heard, "Please welcome Joshua Anjola, founder of Anjola Holdings." For one brief second, the name did not land properly. It hovered and passed across her ear. It almost entered, then returned. Then Monica looked up and froze. On stage, under clear white lights, was Joshua. Not workshop Joshua, not mechanic Joshua, not bookstore Joshua. This Joshua wore a perfectly cut dark suit that did not beg for attention because it did not need to. As the microphone took his voice and gave it back to the room broke into real loud applause. But Monica did not clap. She could not. Her fingers had forgotten instructions. Her mind began to run in circles like a goat that had escaped the rope but did not know where to go. This Joshua, that Joshua. Her eyes stayed fixed on him as he greeted the audience confidently like a man of power, and everything started connecting itself in painful order. He was not broke or confused. He was just wealthy enough not to advertise wealth to strangers. Monica felt heat rise to her face, even though the hall was cool. The woman beside Monica whispered to someone, "He is brilliant and very private too." Another one replied, "That is why people respect him. No noise, just results." Results. Monica heard that word and nearly laughed from the violence of its irony. When the session ended, people started to leave, but Monica stood still for a moment. Then she moved with urgency. She passed one man speaking about partnerships, another woman taking pictures, and finally pushed through to get close. She called, "Joshua!" He turned, looked at her and recognized her immediately. He nodded. "Monica." "Kai!" The way he said her name made her want to explain herself before she even formed the explanation. She quickly smiled. "I did not know." Joshua nodded again. "Yes, you didn't." The sentence was simple, but it landed like a slap wrapped in expensive silk. Monica swallowed her throat. Around them, the room continued vibrating, but for her, the noise had moved far away. Still, she tried to recover her tone and posture at once. I did not know who you were." Joshua looked at her for a moment, then asked, "Did it matter who I was?" Monica opened her mouth, but no sound came because the truth was too ugly to say in public. Yes, it had mattered to her. It had mattered too much. It had mattered so much that she had dismissed a whole human being because the packaging did not satisfy her market expectations. Still, she tried another path. "We should talk," she said. Joshua replied, "I do not fit your portfolio, remember?" He did not say this loudly, he said it only for her to hear, but Monica felt as though the whole hall had heard. She stared at him numbly, but he nodded politely at her and turned to greet another guest. That was all. She left the event earlier than planned. In the car, she sat without starting the engine. Something had opened a wound inside her. It wasn't even that Joshua was rich. The deepest wound was that she had been weighed and found shallow by herself. All her sharpness, all her caution, all her life philosophy, and still she had missed the one thing she always claimed to prize: value. Real value had stood before her in a plain shirt and spoken to her kindly under a mechanic's shade, while she, with all her intelligence, had mistaken simplicity for lack. That night, she lay in bed awake for a long time. Sleep came near, looked at her and left her in shame. The next morning, Monica woke up with one thought already standing beside her bed: Joshua. However, she lay still for a moment and told herself to calm down. So, she had misjudged someone. It was unfortunate, yes, but life should continue. People make mistakes. That was all. It was not the end of the world. Well, unfortunately, some mistakes are not humble enough to remain just mistakes. They insist on becoming mirrors, and Monica carried that mirror all day. At work that day, she was useless to herself and others because she kept thinking about Joshua. She wanted to speak to him so badly. She told herself it was foreclosure. Then she rejected that word because it sounded soft. She told herself it was to clarify things. Then that also sounded weak. The embarrassing truth was that she wanted another chance with him. So she called him once, twice, and thrice. The phone rang each time, but he didn't answer. Monica stared at the screen and thought, maybe he's busy. She sent a message next. Hi Joshua, about yesterday, I think we should talk when you have time. But no reply came. By the next day, she sent another message. I owe you an apology. Still, he did not reply. But Monica did not panic yet. She had ignored enough people in her life to know that a delayed reply could mean many things. She called again 2 days later, and this time he picked. Her heart jumped so annoyingly that she nearly ended the call just to preserve self-respect. Hello, Joshua said. His voice was calm but far off. Hi, Monica replied. Thank you for picking. You are welcome, he said. Monica quickly continued. I wanted to say I am sorry. For what exactly? Joshua asked. Monica forced it out. I'm sorry for how I treated you. I see, Joshua said. I misjudged you, Monica added. Joshua nodded. Yes. She tried to continue. I think maybe we should meet and I don't think that is necessary. Joshua cut in. Monica closed her eyes. Joshua, please. I have a meeting, Joshua quickly said. Take care of yourself, Monica. With that, the call ended. Monica sat very still. Then she laughed at herself. Take care of yourself. That is all he said to me. Is he done with me? Monica refused to accept it and she tried one more time. She sent him a message after 1 week. I know I don't deserve your time, but I am really sorry. He replied hours later with, thank you, I wish you well. That was all. Meanwhile, life began to shake in other corners for Monica, as if once one pillar moved, the whole building would decide to collapse. There was a man named Femi, one of Monica's carefully selected high-value prospects, who had been making noise for months about import deals, expansion plans, and a coming project that would place him in another financial realm. He spoke in percentages and liked dropping phrases like my Dubai people or when I move my dollars. Monica had not yet committed herself fully to him, but she kept him close because on paper he looked promising. Then one afternoon, a scandal broke. It turned out that Femi was heavily indebted. He had borrowed money across half the city and was currently dodging 3 different investors while claiming to be abroad, although he was hiding in Mushin. When Monica saw the news, she sat down slowly in shock. Lillian, who was with her when the news entered, took one look at her face and burst into wicked laughter. Your Mr. Global Expansion is hiding in a boys' quarter in Mushin. Aye, this life is film. Monica hissed, lower your voice now. I will not lower anything, Lillian shouted. See the man you said had structure. Monica shrugged. At least I did not marry him. Lillian wiped tears from her eyes. Thank God for small mercies. Unfortunately, it didn't end there for Monica because not long after that, a business contact she had carefully cultivated for almost 1 year, a woman she had attended events for, sent birthday gifts to, praised when necessary, and generally treated like a strategic ladder, cut her off in one clean conversation. Monica had approached her about an opportunity she believed was nearly secured, only for this woman to smile tightly and say, I prefer to work with people who feel genuine. With you, Monica, I always sense a transaction before the greeting. Monica maintained composure until she reached her car. Then she sat and cried. The sentence kept echoing in her mind, a transaction before the greeting. It was as if the world had suddenly formed a committee to review her life honestly. Even Lillian stopped laughing at a point. One evening, she came to Monica's house with takeaway food and sat opposite her while Monica pushed rice around her plate without eating. Lillian sighed. "My friend, I hope you are seeing what I've been trying to tell you for years." Monica looked tired from inside. She shrugged. "Maybe." Lillian leaned forward. "No, not maybe. You finally met someone real. A man who did not bow because of packaging, who did not chase you because of beauty, who did not try to buy you or sell himself to you. And you treated him like a transaction." Monica kept looking at her food. Lillian continued, "This is not even about his money." Monica laughed bitterly. "Isn't it?" "No," Lillian shook her head. "The painful part is that if he had actually been poor, he still would have been the better man." That one landed. Monica dropped her spoon. That night, after Lillian left, Monica sat alone on her bed, holding her phone. She opened the note she had protected for years. "My life portfolio." The title stared back at her like a joke. She scrolled and read through it. Chinedu, high income, low loyalty risk. Femi, socially visible, possible leverage. Antibose, government connection. Tari, emotional liability. Cousin Ify, avoid after salary week. Line after line, category after category. She had reduced human beings to usefulness, risk, access, burden, and possibility. Monica kept reading until the whole thing began to look absurd, then ugly, then sad. Slowly, she began deleting the names. She muttered, "I knew money, but I did not know people." For a long time, she sat there thinking of her mother standing in that rain years ago, holding insults and small money in the same hand. She now understood that in trying not to become her mother, she had become something else entirely. She had turned into a lifeless, hard rock robot calculator. Hi besties, thank you for watching this story. This story is dedicated to Monica, our birthday bestie. Happy birthday, dearest Monica. On this special day, I pray that God gives you the gift of loyal people. May doors be opened to you in places you never thought possible. Besties, please, let's wish her well in the comment section. If you know you enjoyed the story, kindly give the story a thumbs up and share the story out with your loved ones. Subscribe to this channel if you've not done so by now. Until I bring another story your way. Bye!